This episode of Top to Bottom is sponsored by Noted Analytics. Are you tired of losing sales opportunities to the status quo? Not seeing meaningful information in CRM to help close deals? Empower your team with Noted Analytics, the first guided selling for CRM platform that uses sales methodologies like gap selling, Medic, and others to revolutionize the way revenue teams capture, evaluate, and measure sales process effectiveness. Start increasing win rates, shortening sales cycles, and growing average sales prices today. Check it out at notedanalytics.com.
And we're live.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. I'm tired today. I don't know why. I'm tired today, Becc. I'm tired. I'm getting nervous because I feel like I'm tired if I don't drink caffeine, and I'm not a caffeine drinker. So yesterday I did a little experiment. I did 1 cup of espresso in the morning, 8 o'clock. That was the most productive day I had in a long ass time. I felt fucking great all day. So I'm like, all right, today I'm not going to do anything. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. So I don't know what it is. And I got to keep experimenting because I got a lot of personality quirks and fuck ups, but addiction is not one of them. I'm not addictive type personality. So the idea that I need anything to function the way I want to function is inconceivable to me. So I got to figure this out because I do not want to have to take caffeine every day the rest of my life as Becc takes a big sip of coffee. So everybody, welcome to Sales Top to Bottom. I'm your host, Keenan. Becc, do you need caffeine to keep you going?
Of course. Well, I mean, it's a good question. I don't know because I haven't existed without it.
Wow.
I've never existed without it.
Wow.
So it's just a staple. It's a tenet of who I am. If you are what you eat, then I am officially baguette and caffeine.
You're a bottle of Monster, huh?
Yeah, have respect. It's a can.
Yeah.
Please.
So Justin Liam's, I bought a really nice Bevel, I think Bevel, really nice Bevel espresso maker with an automatic damper and damper measurement. I mean, this thing makes.
You did.
I did. I bought it.
Oh.
I remodeled my kitchen, so I got this little coffee area. And you're talking to a guy this is no joke, for basically 45 years of his life, the only time he ever had any type of caffeine was when he had a Diet Coke with his McDonald's. You know what I'm saying? And so then now that I'm 55, I never drink coffee, but I had this whole coffee bar area, and that's what I get things in my mind. So it's cool. I got to make it look good. So I went and got this cool Bevel, and the girls love it. Like, they make coffee every day. And so every once in a while, I'm like, oh, I'll try an espresso. And it's like drugs. And I'm like, oh, this was awesome.
Totally. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can execute. Like, if I didn't go into my Starbucks, keep in mind, I have friends here now in France. Most of them are Starbucks employees. Shout out Starbucks. Like today, for instance, they just give me free coffee. I walk in, there's a huge line. They don't even take my order, ask my order. They call my order out of like 20 people in front of me, and they're like, just don't pay. Like, they give me books, they send me texts, they send me little videos. Like, best friend. If I didn't go into Starbucks for 2 days straight, they would think I was dead in a ditch. This is candid truth.
All right. Justin Liam's is my new favorite person. I love you, baby. Here's a hug, big man.
Somebody paid Justin to get onto this.
Yeah,
did you say 55?
Oh. I did do some stats. Only 2.9% of LinkedIn users are 55 years older and above. So Keenan,
you're top 2.5.
You're in the LinkedIn minority. You're hitting the minority.
I'm a Gen Xer, but by only 3 or 4 years, depending who you ask, because I was born in 68, and I think they say boomers end in 66 or 64 or something like that.
Gosh.
So I just snuck in. But, you know, my greatest, I can't say claim to fame, but what I'm most proud of, and this messes with people, I may have said on the show before, I am the first generation Black American born with all my rights. Mm-hmm. When I say that, some people's eyes like, wait, what? Yeah. First generation. First, I'll say it one more time. First generation. nobody born before me was born with all their rights in America. No black people. My dad born in 1938. Nope. My aunts, my aunt, nope. First one.
38.
So there was, not to throw a curveball in here, but there's been a couple of people who have been like, oh, Keenan's 55? He doesn't look 55. I'm like, do not tell him that. I'm like, you're gonna unravel so much hard work of mine. You'll unravel a month's worth of work.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yes.
honestly. So just do not,
Yes.
like, I agree. Do not tell him that.
Thank you. All right, everybody listening, if you're listening, tag somebody. Let's see if we can up the count today. We're starting a little slow, probably because we're off topic right out of the gate. I'm trying to get my energy back. But tag someone that should be watching this. Let us know who should be watching.
If
Tell people
Scott
spread the word.
Cronin is not in here. Scott Cronin, you better be in here.
I better
He's
get
always
on.
in it. He'll show up. All right, let's get this baby rocking. Let's deliver to our audience.
I'm so ready.
100%. Well, with that, we're on to the first segment of this podcast, which is called Gaslit. This is the segment where we ask Becc and Keenan questions that sales gurus strongly recommend AEs ask on discovery calls, and say if it's a self-diagnosis question and score the question. So the first question of today is, who will be affected most if this continues? Becc, why don't you start us off with this one?
Self-diagnosis question for sure. And the short answer is they don't know. They don't hypothetically know how much it will impact them or the ways in which it will impact them. And your job as a salesperson is to find the impacts that they don't know. So it not only broadcasts that you don't know anything, it broadcasts that it is a waste of their time to be on that call the minute that you ask that question, that you're going to take them at face value of whatever they answer with that question. Oh, and I'm going to give it I'm going to be nice. I'm going to say a 0.5.
Keenan.
So ask the question again.
The question is, who will be affected most if this continues?
So actually, I'm going to break from tradition on this one, okay? Because I believe that one of the reasons I don't like self-diagnosing questions is because you should know. You should be able to anticipate the answer. What's the impact of this? Like, hey, what's the impact if you don't lose the weight? You fucking know, asshat. Like, you're the doctor, you know. Mm-hmm. But when who could be affected by this, that's not always clear. I may not know your organizational structure. I may not know where certain responsibilities lie. There's so many things I don't know. And so I think that's not a bad question. Now, in the big scheme of questions, there's a whole bunch of others I'd want to know besides that. But at some point in time, I might want to ask the question. So besides this group here, are there anybody else that's affected this downstream that I need to know about? And I think that's actually a fair question. So I'm actually not going to call it Becc all wants to get defensive. I'm not going to call it self-diagnosing. No. I think it's a legit question because I can't know that, and knowing it may be helpful. So I'm going to give that a 5 and say it's not self-diagnosing.
I'm not going to get defensive. I'm telling you the context at which I'm viewing these. The context at which I'm viewing these is in isolation, standalone, as advice to sales reps that they should ask this question, and it will drive so much more conversion. That's what these questions are.
Okay. Well, I'm giving context then. I'm giving context because it's not a bad question, and I don't want someone walking away because you know what people do? They're black and white, Becc. They're like, oh, don't ever ask that question now. And they're going to fucking not ask it. And there's a time they could ask that question. So
you actually do need self-diagnosis questions, but it's the only questions that I hear people ask. You need to know what they believe and why they believe it. It helps you develop your own diagnosis, but stand alone, I'm going to say, yeah, I stand by the 0.5.
All right. And the next question is, can you achieve blank with what you have now? Keenan, what are your thoughts on this one?
Okay. So this is a situational question. Okay. If you've done a proper discovery, then I wouldn't, and you know all the information, then I wouldn't call it self-diagnosing. I would call it validating. So I have a tendency to ask people a bunch of questions. I do this with my kids all the time. I know the answer. So because you haven't done these things, do you see any way you're going to make that orange team in soccer? No. Right? So I'm doing that to purposely anchor the buyer in the know. So that in that case, if I've done all my proper discovery and I know it, I'm asking that point on purpose to either see if there's something I missed, and or to anchor the buyer in no, so there's no discussion later. Well, maybe we can. No, you already told me you couldn't. If I haven't done my discovery and I ask that question, it's fully on diagnosing and it's done. So I give it like an 8, to be honest with you, if you've done your homework and you know you're doing it to anchor them. If you haven't done your homework, I give it a 1.
All right, Becc, what about you? What are your thoughts on this one?
So I actually disagree. Here's why. Well, it is a self-diagnosis question, meaning it's asking them what they believe to be true. And I actually am not a fan of validating questions because of how I see them usually done. It's not a question, a validating question from my perspective is for your benefit, but not to necessarily uncover something that they didn't know. And how I usually see them executed, it's to lead someone in a certain direction or get them to admit something that you can use against them later, but you said, but you mentioned, blah, blah. And not only is it in the wrong ego state, but I believe that the goal isn't to understand something. So I don't need to get them to say that to be able to diagnose, is my view. So I'm going to give it a 1.
Wow, great timing.
Yeah, there's a site called, anyways, go.
Keenan, would you like to put your thoughts on this? You want to go into the next segment?
No, I think Becc is underestimating the power of the psychology of anchoring and having buy-in. And so I do it not just in a selling mode, but like I said, I do it with my kids. I did this with my kid once. She got mad. She didn't make a certain team. And I asked a bunch of questions. And then I was like, so why do you expect that you should make the team? Or why did you think you were going to make the team? That sense of self-reflection after going through those questions is like a bow on a package. It's fucking brilliant. It's a bow on a package.
It comes off so patronizing to me.
Not if you do it right.
You make them admit it. And I think there are other ways to get there other than making them say it.
Don't hate because of execution. Because I never sound patronizing. I'm a lot of things, but patronizing ain't one of them.
If at one point something is 99% of the time in the way of execution done a certain way, I think you have to stop blaming the stick. And you know what I'm saying? More so blame the stick as opposed to blame the execution of the stick. Just pull the stick. It's my view.
Well, okay. With that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is Street Smarts. Let's see. This is the segment.
Anything about that?
Which I was thinking I have 0 of.
Yeah.
Well, hey, this is the segment where Keenan and Becc read advice that's told to AEs on how to run discovery and give their take on the advice being given. All right. So the first one is, the very first question that you ask in discovery makes or breaks the call. So first thing you should do at the start of the call is finish the portion where you build rapport and then start into the script. So I could tell you a million things about blank and name 3 things you do as a company, but I'd love for you to hear about you first, and then tell them about all the insights you know about them, the research you've done on their company, and what you know about their company. Becc, why don't we start off with you on this one?
Okay, so I'm going to start off on, I don't think that the first question of discovery makes or breaks the call. I mean, it's kind of like, I view it like dating, like it can damage the call of like, if you're like your first question, thing you say to the gate is like, so how much money do you make before and after taxes? How many kids do you want? And religiously, how do you want to raise them? If we were to have
That's break.
I mean, it probably is break, but I think that you would still have some minutes after that to recover.
Yeah, to dig out of the fucking hole.
Right, exactly. So I don't think there's a question in discovery right off the gate. And I don't think that that's the typical scenario. People don't usually lead with a question that's that terrible right off the gate. And I don't think that it would completely break the call, in my opinion. So that's the first piece of it. The second piece of it is, I don't think that I do find, well, the second piece of it is it says, well, then you should build rapport. After you're done building rapport, then go into the following statement, which I characteristically disagree with that. I think the rapport should be built throughout the call. I don't think there's a portion at the beginning, where you're like, nice boat picture, or go UC Boulder Buffaloes or Patriots or whatever. And then that's the rapport section. That's the second, did I get one of them? So I'm like, that's the second thing I disagree with. But the third piece that I disagree with is that in that like quote unquote upfront contracty thing at the beginning where you're arranging the call, I do see value in that. But I don't think that you should, number one, lead it with, we could tell you a million things about us and then start telling them about you. And then say, but I'd like to focus on you first and then tell them the things that you know about them. I think both of those are gross misunderstanding of how buyers buy and what they want to go into right off the bat and how they see value from discovery, do or don't see value from discovery. So I'm going to lead with that and pass to Keenan.
All right, Keenan, what are your thoughts?
Okay, do not read that whole thing again. But what was the main question to kick off a discovery call?
Yeah. The first
okay.
question you're asking a discovery call.
Okay. So I absolutely believe first question could make a break, 100,000%. Now, Becc likes to make things all gray and play in the but. So is you doomed? No, but absolutely, I think a first question could make a break. And to me, it's really simple. This person or this advice is ridiculous. It's scripty. It's long. It's buyer focused. And I don't even understand the hypothesis or the framework at which this person is operating from that gave this information. One of the things that I find most intriguing is my sorry ass gets older and I pay more attention and look is too many people do shit in a reactionary mode and haven't really stopped and asked themselves, what is my underlying thesis or process or frame or rubric that I'm bringing to this table and why? Why did I bring it? And this is one thing I am so proud of about gap selling and why I will go toe to toe with any other sales trading. Yeah, that other sales trading does stuff, and that other sales methods do provide value. I'm not going to say that, but there's no underlying premise. Like, what was the premise? The premise was to get the salesperson to sell shit. Our premise is to actually help manage change. Why did we have that premise to gap selling to manage change? Because we realize that psychologically and intellectually, when someone is buying something, they're going through a change process. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to have the most influence possible on the change process, then your method and approach and rubric and frame, whatever fucking word you want, had better focus on change. Mm-hmm. Right? So where am I going with all that back? For me, it's the simplest question in the entire world. You know, men, do me a favor, take a second. Walk me through what brought you to come on this call today, and what are you hoping to accomplish? Mm-hmm. And I shut up. And they will tell me all I need to know.
Totally.
Right? Now, if you want to tweak it a little and say, hey, what are some of the things that are happening there that you are hoping we could address that got you on the call? I can live with that as well. But the idea is I ask them to start talking right, and I want to know, what is your motivation to be here? And once you give me your motivation to be here, I will ask a bazillion questions, and I'll have you stripped naked in front of everybody in about 30 minutes, if not 15 minutes. And I'll know exactly what's wrong, how long it's happening, why it's affecting you, what if you don't change? And then I'll be like, all right, we can fix this. Let's go.
I think it's very clean what you're saying too, of like, so can you tell me a little bit more about, can you help walk me through, why are we here today? And it gets them to start talking. And I believe why it's so easy for you and why it's not easy for this person to see in this post is your goal is to diagnose.
Yep.
You're like, I'm going to start that off with questions. And their goal is to sell someone, whether that be on their product, their credibility, their rapport, their value. So they start talking. These are the things that we do. And I think the specific point that really stood out to me is you should tell your buyer what you know about them at that point. I'm like, if I have a limited amount of time, then yes, you should do your research, but keep all that research in the back of your head. You may be correct, you may be incorrect, but start asking questions to find out the things that you don't know, because 95% of what you're after in that call is the things that you don't know that you couldn't get access to. Mm-hmm. So starting with any kind of explanation, we do this, I could tell you a million things. I'm like, stop telling me anything. Don't tell me a million things. Don't tell me 10. Don't tell me 3. Start with a question. Anywho, it just stands out to me how easy that is for you, Keenan, and how easy that would be for sellers if they just start, can you tell me a little bit about
what prompted you to take this call? How about that one? Everybody, you know what? Fuck it. Every one of you, write it down. Let's fucking make this as easy as shit. To start at every single discovery call for the rest of your life, hey, insert, Becc, could you tell me what prompted you to take this call knowing you're so busy?
Yeah.
Just start with that. Just start with that. And the worst answer you're going to get is, well, you asked for the meeting. That's the worst answer you're going to get. That's the worst one. And you simply say, okay, great, Becc, but I know, look, you got a lot of things you can do on a Tuesday, and I bet a lot of people ask for meetings, but you took this one with me. So understanding that, I got to believe there's something going on that you are hoping I might be able to address. What is that? Just help me understand that. And then you're right back to where you wanted to be, and you're off to the races. So there you go, everybody. There it is. Merry Christmas. Happy Thanksgiving. Fucking write it down. Do that. And if you can't get somewhere with that in a discovery call, quit.
So like, and you're after the problem right off the bat, correct?
Yes, all the time.
So I'm like, I used to just lead them there. Sometimes I do an ad hoc Keenan one, but I'd be like, hey, so you look like someone who doesn't waste your time. I'm assuming that you joined this call because hypothetically you thought that there's some problem that you might be having that you might be able to solve with me. If you don't mind me asking, what's that problem?
Yeah, I can live with that too.
Sometimes I would say if they knew you, I'd be like, well, we both know Keenan and we both know he'd murder me to death if I did anything except for diagnose a problem right off the bat. So if you don't mind me asking, what's the problem hypothetically you were looking to solve? And they lead you straight there.
Yep.
So, all right, man.
All right, next quick question is going to be, here's 3 things you should disqualify on early. Price, and if they have money, power and access to it, and if you don't think they have a problem that's big enough. Keenan, why don't you start us off on this one?
Is this real?
Yeah.
This is a real person gave this advice.
Yes, and a very well-known industry influencer who knows a lot about sales and coaches people.
No, he doesn't. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. No, she doesn't. Or no, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. Because if he knew a lot about sales, I don't give a fuck how long he's been selling. I don't care what he's done. I don't even care how successful he's been. If he knew a lot about sales, he would never give that advice. Never. You do not start by qualifying on price fucking ever. 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 That shows a complete lack of understanding of the buying process and the change management process somebody goes through in their head. Ever. 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 Look, I don't even, oh, no, I can't. I'm not even going to address it. Just fucking no. Just no.
I'm not even going to try to bait Becc this time.
I think on a side note, something just clicked for me. I used to wonder why, like on the tour, when I'd hear Keenan yelling, it would instantly like make my butt, like I would go to sleep on a bench nearby being like, and I couldn't figure out why. I was like, it just feels so homey. Like he's yelling and I'm like, oh, the world's okay. And it just clicked for me why. Of like, he's yelling all the things that I'm thinking. And I feel like I have a responsibility to say, but he's taking care of it. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like he's saying the things that are so relieving.
Oh yeah. Well, hey, with that,
look, let me give everybody the simplest example in the world. Okay? Simplest example in the world. Okay? If your toilet is overflowing and it's not just water, okay? How much have you budgeted in your head to get it fixed? And let's just say there's a number. Let's just say there's a number. Like it's not infinite. You don't have $1 million, but there's a number. And it's $1,000, $2,000, $5,000. There's a number in your head that you're going to pay. Okay? The minute it is solved, or before it starts overflowing and before the shit comes out, but the toilet is still broken, the very thing that's going to cost that to start overflowing shit and piss is broken. And it's only a matter of time. You're not paying $5,000 in that moment. Now, what you will do, and if someone is really good, they will show you in a very clear, paint by numbers way that if you do not solve this problem as you described, so I saw the toilet, it's fact. You told me how many times you flush it. Facts. So all the facts are facts. Don't try, well, what if? No, what ifs. Here's the facts. You may not pay $5,000 because it hasn't happened yet, but you're certainly going to pay $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 because you don't want it to happen. So if you're the knucklehead who tries to qualify before you've identified the problem, the person who doesn't understand that if I don't get this fixed, this is going to happen says, Yeah, I got $400 or $500, so I'm paying for this, all I'm paying. It doesn't flush right. And they don't know the reason it doesn't flush right is because it's about to spew tons of shit in your bathroom, and you don't know that. You're not going to say, I'll pay this much. And this is what knuckleheads can't get through their fucking head. When we talk about this, it drives me insane. No one can put a price on anything until they understand the size of the problem and the impact of not solving it. You cannot put a price, a budget, an idea on that. Period. End of discussion.
What's your take on power? I want to hear your take on power. The second one that
there is no power. There is no power anymore.
No, meaning the second point that they mentioned was, what was it, man?
The power or access to it.
Yeah. Look, everybody has access to power, and power is everywhere. So I never qualify on that. Ever. I have a 50% win rate. 50% is my win rate over the last, 10 years. Well, I haven't tracked for 10 years, but as long as I've been tracking this company, I'm 50%. Okay. So no, and I never ask for power. Ever ask for power. Ever. Why? Because it's always there. As I get talking to the person and I start to realize, or they say, hey, I need, my boss would love to see this, or I need to get so-and-so. I'm like, great, who else do we need to get? What do you need to do? I just make sure that they themselves are walking through it, and I can sense it. I can ask by the question that I'm answering, whether they can answer them or not, based on the impact. I know if I'm talking to this person, the impact is here. I'll simply say, I know this is impacting IT. Do they need to be involved? So I'm not trying to qualify on power. I simply am making sure that power or the players, those affected, are in place. So the users, the end users, the owners of the business who are affected by it. So anybody who's affected is power. If they're affected, they're power.
Well, and I think of that example with the toilet. Like, what if, whatever, L uncovered that the toilet was overflowing. And they come up to you and they scream like, Dad, there's shit going everywhere.
She has access to power. Like, I'm affected. Notice what I said. I'm affected. I trust that the problem's big enough. Everybody who's affected will eventually be part of the cycle. I cannot think of in the last 10 years, 8 years, what I've been running this company without ever qualifying on power, did I ever lose a deal because I was talking to the wrong person? I cannot think of that. I can't. So that's just stupid. And to Justin, JD, Liam's point, it's also condescending to the person you're talking to.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's so placating to the person.
Mm-hmm. I got a headache.
Well, all right. With that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is Take It or Leave It.
Would you pay for $1,000 pill for that headache, Keenan?
No, I'd probably pay $50.
Oh.
Yeah, because it's not preventing me from doing anything. Just the pain. I'd pay $50.
Hey,
right
is
now,
it preventing you from doing anything?
Well, hey.
Hello?
I'm yelling. Okay.
All right. Well, hey, this is Take It or Leave It, which is the segment where I introduce common sales tactics, and Keenan and Becc let us know whether they would take it or leave it.
Okay, I got an idea.
Yes, what's up?
Before you do it, this is cool. Let's see how this works. I want everybody in listening to write "take it or leave it" to answer the question. So as we're doing the "take it or leave it," you guys say what you would do. Take it or leave it.
Intéressant, c'est une bonne idée.
I got you. Well, in that case, to everybody, the first one is buyers having their cameras off during a Zoom sales call. Keenan, take it or leave it.
Leave it. Leave it. Leave it. Leave it. Not only is it leave it, I find it highly disrespectful, utterly inconsiderate. And it happened to one of my salespeople recently. And I'll tell that story another time. And I'm inclined to write to the people who did it and be like, fuck you. Fuck you. Absolutely uncool. She had to talk to 3 black screens for an entire sales call, right? And so, no, if you can't show your face on it, then don't show up and reschedule, okay? Especially when I go 1 or 2 people, number one. Number two, if you're the salesperson, have the guts to challenge them. Have the guts to say, listen, this is a Zoom call. It's a personal meeting. Would you mind putting on your camera? If they say no, then I'm perfectly okay rescheduling this to a time when you feel comfortable. You can be on the camera, and we can all give 100% of our attention. And by the way, if anybody tries to look me in the eye right now and tell me that in a call with less than 4 people, okay? I think any number, but we'll just say less than 4 people, okay, that you are fully paying attention with your camera off, and that is a fully human-to-human interaction, you're lying your fucking ass off. Because the reason the camera is off is there's something you don't want them to see. How you look, your facial expressions, that you're multitasking, that you're getting up, that your house is a mess. And every single one of those is part of the human-to-human interaction. And what you're saying is there's something about my human interaction right now I don't want you to see, which means I am not fully engaged, which means it's highly disrespectful. We would never let anybody sit in a meeting in a conference room like this. No, fucking stop it, people, and have the guts to call people out. And if they won't do it, don't work with them because they're assholes. If you think that's what they'll do, they'll fuck you down the road as well. Next up.
Hi, Becc. What about you? Take it or leave it?
I'm gonna leave it for the reason I don't really know what I'm taking or leaving. Do I like it? No, I'm definitely leave it.
Are you leaving it like you won't let them do it?
Oh, well, I don't not let them do it. Now, a way that I get around that usually solves a problem is they'll say, can you hear me? And I'll say, I can hear you, but I can't see you. And then they'll start to come on camera or they'll cough up the reason. So sometimes people will be like, hey, I'm really sick. You know, I've gotten that one a number of times and I'm like, okay, leave the camera off. But I want to see the intention behind it a little bit because if it's disrespect, if it's a power move, they don't want to be engaged, like any of that, then I'm like, you know, obviously I'll leave it because, but statistically, just to back you up and then we can move on, retention, at least from like webinar perspective, learning perspective, decreases 35% if the camera's off. Now, I don't think that's necessarily the root cause, but it's correlating, not causational. But I think it's really disrespectful to your buyer. I think something the French do well is they are very respectful of other people. And so there's
you said the buyer?
I think it's really disrespectful on either side.
Oh, yeah,
the buyer does that. Like, I don't think that you can do anything to salespeople. I don't think that you can diss them, you know, on time and like, you know, just reschedule. And something the French do really well is they respect each other. And so there's that expectation back. So I'm definitely a leave it as a practice. I think you should respect someone, you know, regardless of who they are.
And the last one, a quick one, is what if questions. Becc, take it or leave it.
Leave it.
Leave it.
Paint you a picture. What if you can be walking down the beach with your 6-pack abs and your dream soulmate who just understands you on the side that looks at you and says, man, you're just the best person to be around.
Multi-level marketing loves that. What if you can make
your hair, body your dreams? What if that could happen? What if that can happen? It's just a click away.
Good Lord.
Away.
But
what if you could own real estate all over the world for no money down?
$0 down.
$0 down.
And
don't use your own money. Use everybody else's money. You get a bad credit. Shut up.
What if I could end this call is all I'm thinking. God. What if?
But yeah.
Stop swearing and screaming.
How do you
I think the world would end.
How do you really honestly want them to answer? That'd be dope, Brendan. That'd be so great.
Oh, what if you could go skiing with Keenan? Nick Vial.
Oh,
if I had ever been asked by Keenan, I think it'd be a great idea, but he hasn't.
Yeah. Maybe we do a Keenan ski event. Maybe. And then maybe what we do is we put it in ski with my daughter. That's the one.
We're still off the fact that you've never offered to help me ski. Okay. Yeah, great idea.
I know my limits, Becc. I know my limits.
He would be so pissed. You just see him in the snow, be like. But I've only gone twice, when I was 7 and when I was 21. I'm still at the pizza wedge stage. I actually would learn a lot, you know, but I don't think.
Not for me. I'll turn you over to one of my friends who are good with those beginners.
No, I couldn't. No, but I actually would learn a lot. I would look pretty dumb though. I'd look pretty bad. I'd be really bad. I'm still pizza wedge.
It's all good. I still look like a giraffe on ice skates whenever I go skiing. So I'm at level 0.
I
Solid.
did go on one black, but I saw what happened and I was just
What?
confused. So I unsnapped my skis. I was 7 or 8. I was conservative from the jump. Sat down, just scooted my way down the hill. My parents were like, come on.
Well, okay. With that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, my personal favorite, which is
The Inbox.
this is the segment where Keenan and Becc answer questions from our audience. And to help with that, we have none other than our trusty mailbox.
What if you could get rid of that mailbox?
Rollers. The only thing that's missing is our faces, which I don't know why it's taking them so long.
I do.
The reason why is because I tried going to the store and they said I could not. They could not print faces on pages that were like of actual people. So
Even if those, watch this now. Even if those faces are already on the internet in public.
That's what I'm saying. I asked them multiple, like, hey, like these are people I
Don't you have a printer?
know, the whole shebang. I do have a printer. I need to buy the sticker paper. So whatchamacallit?
Don't buy sticker paper. Just print it out, cut it, and slap it on with tape.
So tape. You know how much I spent on this lovely
We are
mailbox?
classy here, Keenan.
We are
All right.
classy here.
All right, we burned a minute. Sorry, my bad.
Okay, here's a little bit of a long one, but this one's from Chris Leone from Big Fan of the Show LLC. He asks, "How do
Long
you?"
time listener, first time caller.
Oh yeah. He asks, "How do you balance selling the solution to the core problem you diagnosed, with any potential risks, side effects, or changes that implementing the solution entails? For example, let's say you're a doctor who has diagnosed a patient with cancer and recommend chemo. The chemotherapy or the solution brings with it a whole host of additional problems and side effects with the implementation that the patient has to believe are worth enduring to actually get the outcome. Love to hear any ideas from a gap/diagnostic selling perspective. Love you guys. Thank you." Keenan, why don't we start you on this one?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And I talk about it in the book. Look, that's why the gap is so important, okay? Because what too many people think is they think that when they're talking about the cost of something, cost of a product or service, they think of the money, right? I wish I had some money to fucking make it rain, right? They think of the money. But what people don't understand is not just the cost in dollars to change, but it's actually the cost and effort. So in this case, what he's talking about is the effort to change or the cost of the effort, right? So in the case of a doctor, you do the same thing with a doctor would do in a sales environment. A doctor is not going to necessarily recommend chemo if it's early stages. If it's really early stages, I'm not a doctor, but I think in most cases, depending on what it is, they opt to take it out, right? They say, "Wait, look, it's really small. We're going to see we take it out first." Why do they do that? Because they understand that the gap isn't that big yet. It's okay. We got an early stage 1. It's only a single centimeter wide. It's it's in the kidney or it's in the liver. We can take it 2 or 3 centimeter out of the liver and it'll be fine. You know what I'm saying? So we don't need to make you pay the price of all of that chemo because the gap isn't that big, right? But then when the gap gets big, they're like, yeah, you're going to, if the gap is this big, you're here and you're going to die in a year if you don't do this. That's a massive gap. So the cost of change is worth it. I will sit through chemo. I will lose my hair. I will throw up every day because that cost is far less than the cost of dying. So it's just a matter of comparing the two and measuring against each other.
All right, Becc, what about you? What do you think about this one?
Well, I think, he's talking about basically side effects, things will happen because of it. So I think past what Keenan's saying, which I agree with, I think you should get ahead of it for your buyer. To me, your job is to solve their problem or do your best to set them up for success to be able to solve their problem. And if you don't get into a lateral problem that will be created on the back end, or side effects or things that are going to happen, or things that they're going to likely need to be able to implement the solution, like you're not solving their problem. You're just giving them the raw ingredients of how they could, but essentially you're making their situation net the same as if they had bought the wrong solution entirely, or if you had misdiagnosed the entire problem. So I think that it takes a lot of character and it takes a lot of focus on, like, I truly want this buyer's world to be better, because there is some risk. I mean, to Keenan's point of, like, it tacks up the size of the problem that it needs to be if those lateral problems are created. But I think if you truly have your buyers back, which I believe in sales we should, then you'll naturally kind of go into those, and you should uncover them for them and be proactive about it so that you can gain their, like, you can help them long term.
All right. And with that,
by the way, I think I know which Chris it is.
oh, it's Chris.
He's solutions engineer.
Chris
Oh,
Leon. He said
Yeah,
that.
he said Chris, Mr. Chris Leon.
I hope he's watching.
I hope so too. He hasn't made a comment yet, but
I love solutions engineers.
hey,
Cool.
with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is
The challenge.
challenge. This is the segment where Keenan and Becc break down a challenging subject within the sales industry. And today's challenge is how to properly challenge your buyer. Becc, why don't you start us off with this one?
Ooh, that's a whomper. So I want to start off with, that was a good one. He didn't put this one together. That was a good one. I don't believe that you should challenge your buyer outright, meaning when I see people doing that, it's typically to kind of force something down their throat or get a point across or make them see things in a different way. But I think the value inherently of challenging, you should be challenging in your own mind, whether what they believe is correct or whether they've missed something. But how I've really leaned into it is by helping them uncover themselves that what they're saying is not true. So I'll give you an example, and it sounds crazy, but I went home, and this was a few months ago, or a while back, and I thought I had self-diagnosed that I had stomach ulcers. And the reason I thought it was because of stress. So I go to my sister and I said, hey, I've got stomach ulcers because of stress, I think. So I wanted to see what I should do about it. So she starts asking me a number of questions. She said, well, why do you think it's stomach ulcers? You know, or what made you think that? And I'm like, well, or she said, can you describe the pain? Something like that. Like, well, I have really sharp pain. It happens, you know, very, very quickly, and then it goes away. I had stomach ulcers about 10 years ago, or back when I was in college, however long ago that was. And you know, essentially when I took some medications, they went away. She goes, and why do you think that it's stress? I'm like, well, you know, work has amped up a little bit, and because of these deliverables or yada, yada, yada. So I think it's stress. She said, interesting. Are you still drinking a lot of caffeine every day? I said, well, yeah, I am. She said, are you still drinking Americano every single morning? And I said, yeah, I am. And she said, are you still drinking a Diet Monster for lunch every day? I said, uh-huh. She said, are you still drinking a Diet Coke every single night? And I said, yes. And how she blew it up, how she challenged it, was she challenged the underlying reasoning, the fact that supported how I was drawing that assumption. She didn't say you're wrong. She didn't say it's not, you know, created by stress. She didn't say any of that. We'll never forget what she said. She said, did you know there are actually no medical studies that link stomach ulcers to stress? And I instantly ratified it myself. I said, oh, it's the caffeine. She goes, I believe it's the caffeine. So I think the first step is uncovering what they believe. The second step is uncovering if you think that that's different. The third step is uncovering why they believe that. And how you challenge basically the difference is by uncovering for them what you believe that it is, you know, through your line of questioning, and then blowing up the fact that supports their assumption, because they believe that because of a fact that they believe to be true, that they're using as a reason to support the conclusion that they drew. So instead of saying you're wrong, or let me challenge you for a second, or da-da-da-da, I think that you should invalidate, before you have to find the root cause of what you think it is first, but invalidating the fact itself, as opposed to invalidating what they believe. Because if you invalidate what they believe, you're essentially invalidating them as a person, because it's a choice that they're making in their head. Whereas if you invalidate the fact that supports it, they'll self-lead themselves there, essentially, if you found it beforehand. And the bad guy in the situation is not them. The bad guy wasn't me, for being stupid or blah, blah. The bad guy was the fact that wasn't correct that I thought to be true. So that process has honestly changed the game for me. Anyhow, Keenan.
So what's the answer? Are you challenging people or not? Because you said you don't believe in challenging people.
I don't believe in challenging them outright, of trying to get them to see my perspective and saying you're wrong, or what I'm saying. Like when most people
why do you see challenges? Why are you defining challenge that way, in that direct, aggressive, abusive manner?
Well, it's not necessarily aggressive or abusive, but the
you're
fact
wrong. That sounds aggressive to
telling
me.
someone you're incorrect. I think that what you do is you can invalidate the fact that supports it. So, the definition of challenging is a very aggressive term. And I believe that that's why there was so much value to the Challenger sale, in my opinion, of like, they were talking about teaching, tailoring, taking control. And I'm like, well, how you do that though, is first you got to diagnose, and you have to have all the information readily available. So I'm like, it was the act of challenging that is the instigant in the situation, because most of the sellers that I heard, said like, there's a lot of value behind this, but I don't want to come off as a jerk, and I don't want, and they would see their prospects rebel in the situation. Like from a psych view, like there's 5 selves. I won't get into it. A great book to read is The Evolving Self by Robert Keegan. But basically the second self is you become aware that other people exist. And Keenan, you think this is interesting. It starts at age 6. It's only up to age 16. And basically 6 to 9, you want to win favor with the same-sex parent. And then you see an interesting flip at 9 to 12. They want to make war with the same-sex parent and win favor with the opposite-sex parent. And then at 12 to 16, they want a war on both. So basically, what that breaks down to is, if you're telling someone that they're wrong, if the goal is to make them, is to challenge them, then statistically, you can be no older than 16 years old from an emotional level. So they'll start to go into parent ego state, and they'll be like, well, I don't care if what you say is wrong, and they'll get all defensive. So I think the value is there, but the way that you execute it is paramount. Otherwise, they'll flip into the wrong ego state, and it's basically, the value's gone, because they won't hear it if you don't say it in the right way. You don't.
I'm just more interested in why you keep assuming or keep defining challenging in that way.
Yeah, well, it's.
I look at that as being argumentative, and I look at that as being confronting. I don't see that as challenging.
Okay, so the definition of challenge is a call to someone to participate in a competitive situation or fight to decide who is superior in terms of ability or strength.
Okay, that's one. There's got to be another one for that.
Dispute the truth or validity of.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, before that one is invite someone to engage in a contest of who's correct. They're all 3 in the wrong ego state, from my view. So meaning a doctor.
I think we're over engineering on the word, right? And so in the world of sales, we should absolutely be challenging people, because if we're not bringing value. The way to do it, as you described, is 100% leveraging their data with your information, and or asking them to walk through the process with you and ask them to describe or think about or postulate the different outcomes. So, and that's why I love validating questions so much, right? You're not afraid of validating.
That's why I don't love validating questions. That's where my business is going. I'm like, that's why
I absolutely love validating questions, right? Because the ability to anchor the buyer in what they believe, that's the baseline. So then when I add more stuff out, so watch this, right? You're honest with yourself. So it was easy. She asked you all of these questions on caffeine as you sip more caffeine, right? But for every one of you, when she said, well, there is no medical
studies
that show that it creates cancer, Your natural, oh, it must be the caffeine. Well, that's because you're open, honest, and vulnerable to fix it. 75% of people who are in love with caffeine would start changing their story. They will start changing their story. Like, well, I don't drink coffee that much, and I don't have it every day. So now I am having to figure out how to walk this person back from what they said. But if I validated, and she kind of did it with you anyway. She asked you, she literally said to you, do you still drink Monster every day for breakfast, for lunch?
She didn't know.
That's a validated question. It doesn't matter.
No.
Oh, you backtrack.
Okay. No. Stop. What if she had said no? What if I had said no? I don't.
But
the purpose of a validating question is to validate. I don't think there should be a purpose behind any question other than to diagnose.
She knew, because you clearly told it, because as you told the story, she knew you did what you did for breakfast. She knew you did what you did for lunch. She knew what before bed. So she already knew. She wasn't picking this out of the sky. He's going to ding me any second. You get me, big boy.
No, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
Never.
Yeah.
I don't think that I'm a typically, and maybe you correct me if I'm wrong. My guess about myself is that I'm not a typically vulnerable person, someone who won't back at you, someone who will just tell the truth. You know what I'm like.
You're logical
about something that's really, really deep to me. Like if I didn't believe something, I feel like I would bat right back at. To me, it made it fun for me that I'm like, ooh, the bad guy is this fact.
Yes, but Becc,
whether I was willing to do something about it or not, that was a whole nother question.
Yeah, but what you're missing, because we're on validating questions now, and not the whole challenge piece, but you did a great job on that, is she knew your caffeine habits. She knew them.
She guessed.
Okay, all right. I want to leave this because this is the type of conversation that drives me insane. Because with the way you describe your story, this is why I make people mad. And I want you to go back and watch this. I listened intently, and it wasn't guessing. She was like, do you drink Monster for lunch? Do you drink Diet Coke at bed? This is too explicit.
I was saying this, Keenan. I listened. I listened. And to me, the difference between the validating question and a diagnosis question in that state is, are you still drinking caffeine? How many times are you drinking caffeine per day? And what are you drinking?
Yeah.
But between that and saying, can we agree that you drink a lot of caffeine? Or can we agree to say that you drink a lot of caffeine? And can we agree that could cause stomach cold? To me, it's the goal shifts everything. It's like, I want to get you to admit something versus I want to diagnose at that point. And
I've already diagnosed. And what I'm trying to do is get you on the same. Okay. Anyways, that's my world, how I do it. I need to anchor people and get them to agree that we see it the same way. The reason I've done that is in the past, when I haven't done that and we go back to challenging, they start changing. Their stories start to change and they start to twist and tweak and torque because for whatever reason, they're married to it. It affects their perception of it. They don't want to be perceived as not being as good. I use my kid, right? I learned this. I ask her a bunch of questions. I get straight answers. I'm like, all right, so we really haven't been doing what we should do. No. Then why do you think you should get? Now they have to be honest with themselves. If they don't, they're like, well, I kind of did. And no. I take the back door exit away. You said it with 4 words because it's not about me diagnosing more. It's about me making them own it so we can move forward. Because sometimes people don't like the experience of evaluating a problem. And so rather than face it on, they will try to back their way out.
It finally clicked to my head. I think what you have is you've misdiagnosed for your own self of what is happening in this situation. The root cause it can't be solved by them agreeing to something or saying something because the root cause is different. They're just going on the defensive because they feel so they're going to switch stories to basically get out of the situation as opposed to, you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, that was human nature. People do that all the time.
It's human nature in the parent and child ego state, but not an adult.
Yes, it is because they do it with they do it themselves. So unless you're telling me I can have a parent-child ego statement with myself, which makes
Yeah,
no sense.
you can. Parent and child ego state can both lie, are both emotional, and both have the agenda of impacting the other. You can be in parent, you can be in child, and the way that you can flip someone into basically the opposite
No, but
is
with myself. I can't have a parent-child with myself.
yeah, oh, of course you can. Of course you can within yourself. Absolutely. It's like good angel, bad angel. No, I don't want to do this. Yes, I want to do this. I want to be disciplined or not. But the one that's more rare is the adult ego state, which is when your goal is strictly to understand and you're completely from what you believe without any, like people make themselves believe shit all the time. You know, like there's some like stats will show you if you tell a lie long enough, you start to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one is that everything about Trump is a lie. All the charges are made up. Everybody's working against him. And a giant population believes that our system is so broken. By the way, these are all patriots. Our system is so broken that you could push this number of lies, false, what are those things called? Allegations. But then when you get indictments, false indictments, grand juries are all lying. Like the size of the scale of this to be real is ridiculous, and yet people believe it. So yeah, I still believe anything.
I researched lawsuits and that he's lost after our conversation the other week. It's fascinating. Everyone should go. Anyhow,
all right, sorry. Here we go. All right, that was an interesting one. But Becc and I disagreed a lot today. So you guys people have a lot to. You can take and pick and choose what you want.
You can take it or leave it. Okay, well, with that, we are on to the next segment of this podcast, which is...
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
This is the last segment of our podcast where Becc and Keenan share what's on their mind and give us some of their closing thoughts. Keenan, what is your just one more thing for today?
I would like to know what our audience thinks of this show. We are on 45, and we've got a good base, but it really hasn't blown up. So I want to know, is it worth us to keep going? Should we keep going? Is it worth it? And if so, what should we do different? And if not, let us know. Because again, we got a nice little base. We've been doing it long enough. I would have expected that it would have grown in engagement, views, popularity, etc. So I do things that want to provide value. That's why I do them. I don't do them for my own pat on the back. So what I interpret is the fact that it hasn't grown or getting larger audiences and more engagement is that it's not bringing as much value. So tell us what you think. Is it valuable? What do you want to see differently? How can we make it better, etc.?
Hi, Becc. What about you? What's your just one more thing for today?
I got 15 seconds. I hope my mom is watching. Go Rangers.
Go
Texas. Win it, baby. Bury those Diamondbacks and just win it.
Yeah, an RIP Mattress
Mac. The final game tonight, which...
Wait, really? It's already 3-0 in the World Series?
3-1 Rangers, and the Rangers have never won the World Series ever. Me and my mom went to game 6 and 7 in St. Louis against the Cardinals, and we lost in 11th inning. Long story, but yeah, they came back in the first game and won it in 11th inning. The Rangers did. Then they got spanked 9-1 by the Diamondbacks in game 2, and then I just tuned out because I'm like, if I get too emotionally invested, I become a scary person. I just become scary. And so I was like, okay, I'm just not going to look because then I care too much. But then I was like, I'm going to say this on the podcast so that everyone knows that I do care. I'm like, go Rangers. I really hope that we win it.
Hey, there we go. Well, that's our podcast.
All right, everybody.
1 a.m. tonight for me is when the game starts.
I got to watch the game. All right, well, everybody, thanks for watching. You've been watching Sales Top to Bottom. It's been a pleasure talking with you this week. I'm Keenan.
And I'm Becc. Hope to see you next week.
See you next week.
Thanks for watching the Sales Top to Bottom podcast with Keenan and Becc. Subscribe to our YouTube channel for more sales content. And if you'd like to see us live, find us on Keenan's LinkedIn Live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. This is Sales Top to Bottom, signing off.